speculate. There have been positive tests, so we know that just from public information. But there's credible reporting that it's broader than that. And by the way, we have some overlap. I had, in my first novel, there's some cocaine in bathrooms as well at various restaurants around the city.
Yeah, shockingly, it's still happening. So tell me, I'm assuming that you were not a tennis prodigy yourself. So I mean, this must have involved a fair amount of research. Yeah?
It did. I'm a hack of a tennis player, sort of a club level hack that can just sort of hit the ball around. But I did grow up loving the sport. It's one of those things that my father and I would watch, and it's not like that baseball cliche of like, my dad and I couldn't talk, but we could watch baseball. We could also talk, but we loved to watch tennis, and so I grew up loving the sport and a big fan of the sport. But I'm not an elite player or was never on a track to go pro. So I did do a lot of research for this. I interviewed a number of top players, James Blake and John Isner, who were top American players, and James actually made it to number 4 in the world at the peak of his game. And then I also talked to a lot of players who were on that track and made the same sacrifices from the age of 8 years old on, but didn't go to 4 in the world, but made the pro tour and now either teach or coach or still sort of in orbit around the game of tennis in some way. And that helps round out the novel. I don't know much about your how you get it done over there, but I've always in my books done a lot of research and found it very helpful for me.
Huh. Yeah. So did you? Did you get out there on the tour a little bit? I mean, did you actually spend time at some of these some of these lesser tournaments, some of these satellite events that form the bulk of the early training?
I've been to the big events, and I've been to some of the smaller events, and then spent a lot of time with James and John and some other players to talk about the background. Really, one of the reasons why I picked tennis,
I suppose that's Mr.
to
McEnroe.
these teams around youth athletics is it's among the most intense of these sports. With soccer and lacrosse, these kids are still supposed to finish high school and then go to college and finish college. With tennis, if you're very good, you don't even go to the junior prom. You're off at a tennis academy in Florida, Bollettieri being the most famous one and sort of the pointy end early on with these, but there are many of these now. And kids go off. Agassi is a great example of someone who went off early to a tennis academy where he was there at the same time as Courier, and on it goes. But there are thousands of kids who make these same lifestyle choices, or their parents do for them, who don't go on to the pros ever. They have burnout at 20 or earlier, or they just don't quite have the goods to get to the next level, but they've still had this very narrow and specialized life from as a youth.
I have to say, it doesn't really sound like a whole lot of fun the way that your protagonist describes it. He really has no life outside of tennis until later in the book when he starts to rebel a little bit. But he basically turns 19 without ever having really talked to a girl or been to a nightclub or participated in
the Odeon.
Participated in a normal social event.
And that's not uncommon. There was an interesting story that James shared with me. James Blake, when he was in high school, was a good player, but he had a very different upbringing than most. So his parents valued education, and he was more on the college track. So he actually went to Harvard for his freshman year, where he grew a few inches and put on some pounds and had a breakout season. So then he went pro, surprisingly, after that, and on to a great career. But one of the things his parents would always ask him the first time they would see him is, James, what books have you read lately? And he always had an answer. He was always reading something. And so he was on the tour, and his parents came with a few other folks from the tour, and they asked the question, what are you reading? And he said he was reading, and they said, to one of his contemporaries, what are you reading? He was like, I haven't read a book in about 9 years. And so there's that's in the book.
That scene is in the book.
Yeah.
I should mention one of the interesting things about the novel and about the protagonist. One of the things that sort of gets him out of his incredibly claustrophobic world is that he's a huge reader, and he kind of he learns about social life and identity pretty much exclusively through novels.